Hello and welcome, my friends and viewers, to this week's episode of Legendlore, where I draw and talk about monsters, characters, gods, and other things from D&D 5th edition, while giving a small but quickly digestible history about them. Together we'll go over their origins within the game, how they utilize in the modern edition, and how you guys can utilize them in your own games. This week we're going to be covering the class of Rogue, the master of stealth, subterfuge, dungeoneering, and combat capitalization. Getting right into it, rogues have a 1d8 hit die, have proficiency in dexterity and intelligence saving throws, as well as thieves' tools, and may wield all simple weapons as well as hand crossbows, longswords, rapiers, and short swords. They may also wear light armor, and can also choose to be proficient in 4 of the following skills, that being acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and of course, stealth. At level 1, the rogue gets expertise, sneak attack, and the ability to speak and understand the secret language of thieves' cant. For expertise, they could choose 2 skills that they are already proficient in, or 1 skill proficiency and their proficiency with thieves' tools. For these chosen skills, your proficiency bonus is considered doubled when you are rolling for them, and you can choose another 2 skills to gain expertise in at 6th level. For sneak attack, you become capable of dealing additional damage on attacks that benefit from advantage or flanking if the DM uses the flanking rule, or on attacks against enemies who are within 5 feet of one of your allies. This additional damage is equal to the number of d6s equal to half your level rounded down, and you can only make this attack with either finesse or ranged weapons. If you have disadvantage on an attack roll, you cannot use sneak attack. Something to keep in mind on the wording of sneak attack's mechanics, which says that you can only use it once per turn, not once per round, which means that you could possibly get sneak attack on both a regular attack made on your turn, as well as any possible attacks of opportunity or additional attacks made by other effects, so long as the prerequisites I just mentioned are met. And lastly, there is Thieves' Cant, which is a special language consisting of dialect, sayings, code, and double meanings used to transfer information in a way that does not compromise the speaker. It takes about 4 times as long to speak a message in Thieves' Cant than it is to say it plainly, so make sure that you have time to spare when speaking. This knowledge also includes the ability to discover and understand secret signs to convey short messages left or made by other rogues. This could include marked territory, warnings, locations of hideouts, easy marks, and other things that aren't immediately easily observable. Thieves' Cant is one of the most creative role-playing opportunities in D&D, and when used effectively can really give a sense of presence for a criminal enterprise or a rogue's guild's real weight, like they own the very streets that you're working on, and that they're always watching. Make sure to make use of it, Dungeon Masters. It will make your rogue feel really special to discover these little secrets in your world. At level 2, you get Cunning action, which allows you to take the dash, disengage, or hide action as a bonus action on your turn. For a quick rundown, dash allows you to move up to your maximum movement speed, disengage allows you to move past enemy squares without suffering attacks of opportunity, and hide simply allows you to make a stealth roll to avoid being seen. At level 3, like most classes, you get to choose your roguish archetype subclass, choosing from the Arcane Trickster, the Assassin, the Inquisitive, or Inquisitor as I like to call it, the Mastermind, the Phantom, the Scout, the Soul Knife, the Swashbuckler, and the Thief. You may also get access to the Steady Aim optional feature should your DM allow it. As a bonus action, you can give yourself advantage on your next attack roll on your current turn, but you can only use this bonus action if you have not moved during this turn. Additionally, after you use this bonus action, your speed is considered 0 until the end of your current turn. This optional rule is often easier to implement if multiclassing is not a part of your game, as there are other class abilities that can heavily benefit from its use, such as Paladin Smites or melee spell attacks. It's essentially allowing you advantage on your attack if you give up your movement. So using this ability along with multiclassing into an upfront role like Fighter, Barbarian, or Paladin, where your literal job is to stick to the enemies like glue and make sure that they don't go anywhere, can make for a very lethal combination, especially if you stack the immobilizing effects of the Sentinel feat on top of that. DMs, be very careful and be sure that you're comfortable with that level of battlefield power before you allow this feature. But as someone who has played with all these kind of things stacked on top of one another, it can be very fun. At level 4, rogues gain an ability score increase, meaning that they can increase 1 ability score by +2 or 2 ability scores by +1. Alternatively, you can choose a feat if your DM allows them, which allows a little bit more customization and versatility to your character. We will go over which feats are often best to get the most out of your class features, and you will get an additional ability score increase or feat at levels 8, 10, 12, 16, and 9 for a total of 6, or 7 if you're playing a variant human. At level 5, you get Uncanny Dodge. When a character that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to half the attack's damage against you automatically. This ability gives the rogue the first half of its off-tank abilities. And while you should be observant about which enemies deal the most damage in combat, having damage as a reaction grants the rogue immense staying power when battling singular, high-damaging foes. It is also important to remember that Uncanny Dodge does not negate the other effects of an attack, such as saving throws against poison, knockback, grappling, and the like. It also only works against one singular attack, not the multiple attacks that creatures get from the multi-attack ability. At level 7, you get Evasion, the second half of the rogue's off-tankiness. When the rogue is subjected to an effect that forces you to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, you instead take no damage if you succeed the saving throw, and only half if you fail. With both this and Uncanny Dodge, you essentially now take half damage from 2 of the most common methods of damage dealing in the game, attacks and dexterity saving throws. This means that your rogue will remain in the fight longer, and as such build greater momentum when fighting alongside melee characters in combat. At level 11, you get Reliable Talent, which means that whenever you make an ability check that lets you add your proficiency bonus, you can treat a d20 roll of 9 or lower as an automatic 10. This is meant to represent your heightened level of skill and diligence when it comes to being a rogue, and now you can automatically cancel critical failures on your rolls made with your proficient skills. Keep that in mind if your DM likes to really punish those natural ones. At level 14, you get Blind Sense, meaning that if you're able to hear, you're aware of the location of any hidden or invisible creature within 10 feet of you. This works great against things like magical darkness or blindness or deafness or invisibility, but only if you can keep attached to the enemy after you've lost your sight. Once they move out of that 10-foot range, you're considered still blind. At 14th level, you get Slippery Mind, which simply put gives you proficiency in wisdom saving throws, meaning you can add your proficiency bonus to wisdom saves. Once again, this adds the rogue's staying power against spells that would turn them against their party, such as Dominate Person or certain illusion spells, or spells that can completely take them out of the fight, such as Feeble Mind. At level 18, you get Elusive, which negates advantage on any attack rolls made against you so long as you are not incapacitated. Now you no longer really need to fear the reckless attacks of barbarians, enemies flanking you, or even other rogues using steady aim. And lastly, at level 20, we have Stroke of Luck. Once per short rest, if an attack that you make misses a target within range, you can turn the miss into a hit automatically. Alternatively, if you fail an ability check, you can treat the d20 roll as a natural 20. This ability often guarantees success for moments that really matter, such as succeeding an ability check that'll save the party, or making that last attack that you desperately need to hit. Do not waste it on frivolous rolls as you only get one per short rest. Now that we've gone over the core mechanics of the rogue, let's take a look at the various subclasses that you can take. I'm going to give a little bit of light coverage over the mechanics, as well as different flavors or depictions that you guys can use for these characters. First off, we have the Arcane Trickster. Arcane Trickster is a rogue who has added a bit of arcane magic to their dungeoneering toolkit, gaining access to spells and a magical hand that can be used for ranged thievery. They are also capable of stealing the knowledge of spells from their targets and making them more susceptible to their magic so long as they're hidden. Arcane Tricksters make great magical assassins, infiltrators, and spies, both as solo practitioners or as agents with governments and kingdoms as their patrons. Additionally, they are also particularly useful against fighting spellcasters as they can literally steal magical knowledge away from them and add it to their own toolkit. But of course it is a little hard to beat the classics, as you have the Assassin. The Assassin is comparable to the Thief in terms of how far its roots go back in D&D, with a focus on getting the drop on foes and killing most of them before their turn has even come. They can also construct false identities, impersonate the voice, writing, and personality of other people, and are generally an interesting sort of enemy for your players to face or play as. Most NPC assassins in the game are just bags of hit points with some extra damage tacked onto their daggers, but a true assassin would never even be suspected by a low-level party, walking past them without a single suspicion or even convincing the party that they can provide aid that would lead to the killer of any victims that they find. All they need is enough trust to get one PC alone, and that's the end of it. These are the people who wear secret poison rings or who make most deaths look like accidents. The point of the assassin is to be hard to find, so make sure that they are hard to find when you're running them in your games. Meanwhile, on the opposite corner of the assassin, we have the Inquisitive, a detective dedicated to finding clues, solving mysteries, and rooting out the missing link in any situation that they come across. Their insight and focus can pierce illusions, aid in reading the movements and habits of their enemies, and even find weaknesses that increase the amount of damage that their sneak attack deals. These are your Sherlock Holmeses, your Inquisitors who root out spellcasters, rebels, and even other rogues. Inquisitives make excellent guard higher-ups in terms of NPCs, and their expertise in reading opponents and dissecting their weak spots can make them exceptionally deadly when they catch your scent. Drop these on your PCs if they've gone too far down the murder hobo hole, and let the reckoning commence. Next we have the Mastermind, a dark parallel to the Inquisitive and a master manipulator whose strengths are built on observing and learning about their mark before they even engage them. By watching their prey, they can learn about their mechanical abilities and scores, and when initiative is finally rolled, can guide their allies to fight stronger, move faster, and be deadlier. They can even falsify their own thoughts against the most intuitive interrogators, and even mentally block against divination magic with a high enough roll. The Mastermind is often a big bad of many a D&D game, a person who observes a party that has begun to meddle in their affairs unwelcomely. After dissecting their dynamic and learning about how each one ticks, they send their agents out to bring the world crumbling down around them. Their mixture of insight and support for their allies allows Masterminds to capitalize and use teamwork in ways beyond just being able to deal damage, so use the Mastermind if your party needs someone to guide the charge. Next, the Phantom, one of my favorite subclasses, takes a more supernatural approach by molding ghostly, ethereal abilities onto the rogue's normal kit. They can educate themselves using the echoes of the dead in order to gain new proficiencies, and are capable of collecting tokens that can be used to empower their sneak attack, embolden their resistance to death and constitution effects, and interrogate the very spirits resting within the token for information. No longer is Speak with Dead the only way to converse with those you just killed. Eventually, the Phantom can truly emulate the spirit, walking through walls and assailing their foes with necrotic wails that send them to their grave. And so rogues who come close to death, or worship entities who foster it, can gain these abilities. Often they could be found in the service of other death-aligned classes such as Oathbreaker Paladins, Echo Knight Fighters, Death Clerics, Shadow Sorcerers, or Necromancer Wizards. When it comes to aligning with casters, Phantom Rogues are usually a spectral spy who keeps tabs on their enemies, and when it comes to martial warriors, they are the blade in the dark that aids them in cutting down their adventurous heroic prey. Next, the Scout Rogue is a master of kiting and outmaneuvering their foes, a tricky, light-footed fighter with heightened movement speed, advantage on initiative rolls, and the ability to make a second attack as a bonus action that can still benefit from sneak attack, even if you've already done so. The only caveat with that ability is that you cannot make one enemy suffer your sneak attack twice, so it has to be a different enemy each time. This means that Scouts are excellent at handling crowds, capable of swiftly moving through hordes of enemies while being able to deal a sneak attack to 2 of them at a time rather than just 1. The damage stacking means that engaging more than one foe is ideal for them at higher levels, and so Scouts make for excellent observers, spies, and survivalists, be it as an agent of a power-hungry duke, a hunter for a tribe of orcs, and so on. The Scouts' lack of any ties to any distinct flavor, such as the Phantom for Necromancy or the Soul Knife for Psionics, who we're going to cover next, allows for an excellent level of versatility in terms of implementation to characters, stories, and plots. Be sure to definitely take advantage of that. Speaking of the Soul Knife, these are the rogues who assault their enemies in not just the physical capacity, but the mental one as well. They can conjure psychic blades in place of traditional weaponry, stun foes struck by their sneak attack, or use abilities such as telepathy, invisibility, and even short-range teleportation without the use of spells. The concept of psionics has always been very wishy-washy in D&D's mythos, but if you can find a way for it to fit comfortably in your world, the Soul Knife is a fun and excellent subclass to use. They can make great mental interrogators for captured foes, and may even journey into the mindscapes of those less cooperative captives in order to find out the information that they want. Creatures known for their innate connection to psionics, such as beholders, aboliths, and mind flayers, may have a Soul Knife agent who serves as their liaison and spy on the surface, voyaging through the public lands to gain the trust of the people before leading them down to the horrible fate in store by the Soul Knife's masters. On the flip side, you can have a Githyanki Soul Knife who are dedicated to the hunting of mind flayers and other aberrations that enslave them, having honed their mental skills to a refined, literal edge. Now, finally moving away from the subclasses that have specific themes, we have the Swashbuckler, which is the only subclass of rogue that can functionally duel against foes without the need for someone to back them up, at the slight expense of having to make sure their charisma is decent as many of their abilities rely on it. The Swashbuckler can duel foes one-on-one and still get sneak attack, cause their enemies to be unable to make attacks of opportunity against them, and make their normal attacks a disadvantage, and can even re-roll an attack that they miss, this time with advantage. I don't really think I need to explain much about how you can flavor a Swashbuckler, as it's pretty straightforward. Pirates, cocky thieves, arrogant adventurers, and posh duelists all fulfill the role of the Swashbuckler, so long as they have the attitude and the necessary skill to back it up. And finally, with the last of the classics, we have the Thief. Thieves are arguably one of the rogues that may often adventure solo and explore dungeons by themselves due to their skill set, capable of disarming traps and locks and using objects as a bonus action, ignoring all class, race, or background restrictions when it comes to attuning to magic items, and being able to functionally take 2 turns at the first round of combat. Thieves are great for games where magic items are very present, able to use them to the best of their ability regardless of what they're truly meant for. They can sneak into a mark's abode, pickpocket to plant or steal items from a mark itself, and often are very great at identifying and selling magic items in any market. Admittedly, this does cause them to suffer a little bit in combat, especially if the game doesn't offer many magic items to use, so be sure your game has moments where the thief can actually do what they do best, which is sneaking, climbing, hiding, stealing, and making that sweet gold. Ultimately, rogues serve as the party specialist in regards to overcoming a number of challenges, be they social encounters, breaking into vaults, or disarming locks and traps so your party may collect loot and avoid terrible, gruesome deaths, respectively. Think less on how tragic and edgy your character's backstory is, and more about how or why they acquired the skills that they have, as well as why they would want to join the party and help with their current endeavors. Maybe a thief stole because they didn't have enough to eat, or maybe a noble swashbuckler learned fencing from a dueling master. I know this is ironic considering the piece that I drew right now has a rogue standing over a dead body, with a burning mansion in the background, but do as I say, not as I do. Next, we'll cover the different feats that are very good for using your rogue build depending on what it is you wish to approach. These feats are the following ones that I recommend to build up your effectiveness in both stealth and range combat, allowing you to hide behind cover while still dealing damage at higher ranges. These feats are excellent for increasing damage output, getting additional attacks, having your attacks have supplemental effects like immobilization, and having bonuses to initiative so that way you could take your turn earlier before your enemy. These feats are particularly good at increasing your rogue's staying power in combat, either through increasing your AC or HP, or by increasing your movement and effectiveness when using unconventional ways of travel, such as climbing or moving stealthily. This next batch is best used for social encounters and in discovering or disarming traps while exploring dungeons. They allow the recalling of information, the increased perception to read lips and see things you wouldn't normally see, and the further acquisition of proficiency in further skills. And then lastly, these feats give your rogue explicit access to either spells or spell-like abilities, offering a whole new degree of versatility when it comes to engaging your game's challenges. They can also make for great boons or flavor in terms of what your players are exposed to and how it can change them to bestow these abilities upon them. I highly recommend using these whenever they encounter extraplanar entities like Fae, Undead, and the like. Now, with feats out of the way, here are a couple of rogue character concepts that you guys can use as the bones for your PC or an NPC for your party to encounter in your game. To start off, we have the Noble Rogue, a member of high society who, for one reason or another, has delved into the world of specialization and acquired a certain set of skills that they otherwise would not have in their current station. This is the prince who sneaks out at night to adventure as a thief, or a duke who studied arcane magic to supplement his work as a spy master. Their outward appearance and place in the feudal hierarchy hides the fact that they wield the skills and knowledge of a rogue, which is something that they're very keen to get the most out of. I put this here because this is a good example of having a rogue that's not in the traditional line of street urchins, dark assassins, and moody, broody rogues overall. Which is ironic to say that our next example is the classic urchin, which is the archetypal rogue character. The smooth-talking swashbuckler pirate, the deadly assassin, the thief who seems to be in physical pain whenever he can't steal something that's nailed down, and so on. These stories are simple, well-known, and easy to implement, as these rogues often want one thing in line with the subclass they've chosen. Assassins can either be window-climbing knife wielders or masterful infiltrators lacing drinks with poison-dispensing rings. Thieves can range from cat burglars to master heistmen stealing from carriages, safes, casinos, and even powerful political figures such as mage, high priests, and kings. And swashbucklers are swashbucklers. I don't think I need to go too deep into that one. And then lastly, for our possible character examples, we have the dangerous henchman. These rogues work well when formed with teams of other classes of like flavor. As I said before, phantom rogues fit well with other undead-centric classes such as necromancers, shadow sorcerers, oathbreaker paladins, and undead warlocks, and as such synergize well alongside undead such as bodax, skeletons, and even bone claws. Soul Knife rogues are often found with other psionic users such as psi warriors and aberrant mind sorcerers, and can come in the form of rogues under the thrall of mind flayers, criminals who have learned to use and traverse through the astral plane as a part of their illicit craft, and even Githyanki war bands hunting down the aberrant. These kind of rogues are usually serving somebody or are usually found in groups, so having that bit of synergy will actually allow two characters to be a part of the same story rather than having the DM have to craft two different arcs for them to go through. The last bit of advice when it comes to creating a rogue character, the things that you want to keep in mind are, what are the motivation for them acquiring their skills? Why have they aligned themselves with the people they teamed up with, be it the party itself or a criminal guild or something? And what does the rogue seek to accomplish with the skill that they learned and the contacts they've made? A good example is your thief rogue aligned with the Thieves Guild because they offer protection, offense for goods, and to not align with the Thieves Guild bars you from thieving in certain areas without being taxed or risking reprisal. Or your arcane trickster could have grouped up with the Mages College in order to gain access to ancient lore and knowledge without having to actually enroll in the academy, thus avoiding a crippling debt that comes with it. But they are often asked to do very shady things by the higher-ups in exchange for it. Ultimately, your story doesn't need to be vastly complicated or overly involved to be a good rogue, but motivation is always everything when it comes to a character, especially rogues. Oftentimes, they work alone and deal with criminal or underhanded activities, which carries its own level of danger and an expertise that few can learn on their own and even fewer can find a teacher for. So make sure you have a good reason to explain why they're traveling with the party in the first place. And finally, for our magic item this evening, we have something that is simply known as the Kit. A selection of fancy roguish tools that a particularly savvy fence has labeled as the bog standard for any criminal worth his salt. It appears as a ring of loosely formed or clipped keys held together by a wire or particularly sturdy metal. The kit functions as a +1 set of thieves' tools, and as a bonus action, you can switch the keys into a structured form and shape for certain actions, specifically a grappling hook, a set of ball bearings, and a light mace. In all forms, save for the ball bearings, the kit gives a +1 bonus to all checks made with its thieves' tools form, and a +1 bonus to all melee attacks made with its light mace form, which is also considered a finesse weapon. Think a switch or a blackjack. In its ball bearing form, the ball bearings occupy a 10 foot by 10 foot space adjacent to the wielder, and any creature who walks through said spaces must make a dexterity saving throw or fall prone and suffer 1d6 bludgeoning damage. It is a bonus action to drop these bearings in your selected squares, and the DC for the dexterity saving throw is equal to 8 plus the bearer's proficiency bonus plus their dexterity. You can also use a bonus action to recall all of your ball bearings back to your hand, so long as you are within 5 feet of the 10 foot space that they occupy. I put the item link down in the description below, and that's the Rogue, everybody. I want to thank all of you guys for watching, and if you guys enjoyed the video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and press the little bell icon to be notified of future videos. You could also have a chance to vote on the next video, choosing between the gods Celestian, Erathis, and Sylvanas. And please let me know what you guys have done with rogue characters, what kind of rogue NPCs you have run in your games for Dungeon Masters, as well as what you guys would like to see in upcoming videos. But until then, I'll see you guys next time.